Hello students, this is Dr. Nimising from SGTB Khalsa College, University of Delhi, presenting this episode on behalf of Professor Nisar Ahmed, PBGM College from Bhopal. Today I will discuss about a crucial topic on communalism, which in current scenario is a major challenge for the Indian society. Let us start with the introduction of the topic. Now, communalism is referred in the Western world as a theory or system of government in which virtually autonomous local communities are loosely in federation. Communalism is a political philosophy which proposes that market and money be abolished and that land and enterprises to be placed in the custody of the community. But in the Indian subcontinent context, communalism has come to be associated with tensions and clashes between different religious communities in various regions. Development of communalism as political philosophy has roots in the ethnic and cultural diversity of Africa. It is characterized as people from different ethnic groups of community who do not interact much or at all, and this has somewhere acted as hindrance in the economic growth and prosperity of Africa. Communalism in South Asia is used to denote the differences between the various religious groups and difference among the people of different community, and generally it is used to catalyze communal violence between those groups. Communalism is not unique only to South Asia, but it is also found in Africa, America, Europe, Australia and Asia. But it is significant socio-economic and political issue in Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, Nepal, etc. In this lecture, our prime focus will be on communalism in India. Let us see which modules we will be discussing in this lecture. Communalism in India, communalism in modern India, infamous communal violence in India, and in the end we are going to conclude the lecture. It is time now to start with a real discussion on communalism in India. Now, communalism in India. Students, before going in depth about communalism in India, I would like to first talk about some basics of communalism. First, let us answer to this question, what is communalism? It is basically an ideology which consists of three major elements. A belief that people who follow the same religion have common secular interest, that is, they have same political, economic and social interests. So, here socio-political communities arises. A notion that in a multi-religious society like India, these common secular interests of one religion are dissimilar and divergent from the interest of the follower of another religion. The interest of the follower of the different religion or of different communities are seen to be completely incompatible, antagonist and hostile. Communalism is political trade in religion. It is an ideology on which communal politics is based, and communal violence is conjunctural consequences of communal ideology. Now that we know what communalism is, let us try to understand its evolution in our Indian society. Now, let us come to evolution of communalism in Indian society. If we discuss about Indian society, we will find that ancient India was united and no such communal feelings were there. People lived very peacefully together. There was acceptance for each other's culture and tradition. For example, Ashoka followed religious tolerance and focused mainly on Dhamma. In medieval period, we have examples such as Akbar, who was epitome of secular practices and believed in propagating such values by abolishing jizya tax and starting of Deen-e-Ilahi and Ibadat Khana. Same acceptance for different cultures and tradition was practiced in several kingdoms throughout India, because of which there was peace and harmony, barring few sectarian rulers like Aurangzeb, who was least tolerant for other religious practices. But such motives were guided purely for their personal greed of power and wealth. Such rulers and actions by them, like imposing taxes on religious practices of other community, destructing temples, forced conversions, killing of Sikh Guru, etc., were instrumental in deepening and establishing the feeling of communal differences in India. But these incidents were not common, as huge majority of Indians were rural and were aloof from such influences, and so people coexisted peacefully. Though they were very rigid in practicing their own rituals and practice, but it never became barrier in the peaceful coexistence. Overall, all the Hindus and Muslims in those days had common stages in Indian common economic and political interest. Communalism in India is a result of the emergence of modern politics, which has its roots in partition of Bengal in 1905 and feature of separate electorate under Government of India Act 1909. Later, British government also appeased various communities through Communal Award in 1932, which faced strong resistance from Gandhiji and others. All these acts were done by the British government to appease Muslims and other communities for their own political needs. This feeling of communalism has deepened since then, fragmenting the Indian society and being a cause of unrest. By communal award, colonial government mandated that consensus over any issue among different communities, that is Hindu, Muslims, Sikhs and others, is precondition for any further political development. Communal consciousness arose as a result of the transformation of Indian society under the impact of colonialism and the need to struggle against it. Students, it's time now to know about how communalism spread in India. The following section will explain this. Now let us see the stages in Indian communalism and how it spread. India is a land of diversity and it is known for lingual, ethnic, cultural and racial diversity. As we have discussed above, communalism in India is a modern phenomenon which has become a threat to India's unity in diversity. We will now see the various stages of communalism. First stage was a rise of nationalist Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, etc. with only first element of communalism as discussed above. Roots of this were led in later part of 19th century with Hindu revivalist movement like Shuddhi movement of Arya Samaj and cow protection rights of 1892. Second stage was of liberal communalism. It believed in communal politics but liberal in democratic, humanist and nationalist values. It was basically before 1937. For examples like Hindu Mahasabha, Muslim League and personalities like M.A. Jinnah, M.M. Malviya, Lala Lajpat Rai after 1920s. The third stage was of extreme communalism. This has fascist syndrome. It demanded for separate nation based on fear and hatred. There was tendency to use violence of language, deed and behavior. For example, Muslim League and Hindu Mahasabha after 1937. It spread as a byproduct of colonialism, economic stagnations, and absence of modern institutions of education and health. These factors caused competition. People started using nepotism, that is patronage, bestowed, or favoritism shown on the basis of family relationship as in business and politics, paying bribes to get jobs, etc. Short-term benefits from communalism started giving validity to communal politics. Later on, spread of education to peasants and small landlords gave rise to new middle class as agriculture was becoming stagnant. So these people started demanding communal representations, and this way social base for communalism widened. Middle class oscillated between anti-imperialism and communalism. Communalism started rooting deeply as it was an expression of aspiration and interest of middle class for less opportunity. Further, from very beginning, upper caste Hindus dominated colonial services as they adapted early to colonial structure. Because of Mughal rule and 1857 revolt, colonial government was suspicious towards Muslims and they patronized Hindus. This resulted in resentment in Muslims in the late 19th century, and they then formed a pressure group under Sir Syed Ahmad Khan to bargain as a separate community. In contrast, Congress' standpoint was always focused on rights and freedom of individual, not on a particular community. In several part religious distinction coincided with social and class distinction, causing communal distortion. Communal outlook was given not by the participants but by the officials, politicians and journalists. In fact, agrarian conflicts did not assume communal color until 20th century. For example, Pabna agrarian movement. Communalism represented a struggle between two upper classes for power, privileges and economic gain. For example, in Western Punjab at that time, Muslim landlord opposed Hindu moneylenders, while in Eastern Bengal, Muslim jatidars opposed Hindu zamindars. Later on, communalism developed as a weapon of economically and politically reactionary social classes and political forces. Divide and rule policy. Communalism was a channel for providing service to colonialism and the Jagirdari class, that is the land officials. British authorities supported communal feelings and divided Indian society for the authoritative ruling. Communal press and persons and agitations were shown extraordinary tolerance. Communal demands were accepted, thus politically strengthening communal organizations. British then started accepting communal organizations and leaders as a real spokespersons of communities and adopted a policy of non-action against communalism. In fact, for the same reasons, even the communal rights were not crushed. Separate electorate started in 1909 to communal award in 1932 fulfilled the wishes of British authorities of ruling India by dividing the society on communal lines. In parallel, there was an introduction of strong Hindu religious element in nationalist thoughts and propagandas. For example, Bal Gangadhar Tilak popularized Ganesh Puja and Shivaji Mahotsav and taking dip in Ganga, etc. The programs related to Ganesh Puja and Shivaji Mahotsav was not initiated to support the interest of Hindus. However, both Ganesh and Shivaji were associated with the emotions of a number of Hindus. This was to be used by leaders as tool to politically awaken Indians. But in Indian history, in schools and colleges were given communal and unscientific color. This kept Muslims largely away from Congress till 1919. In early decades, only 8 to 9% of members of Congress were Muslims. Gradually, religiosity became major contributory factor and it started intruding the non-religious and non-spiritual areas of life and also beyond the individual's private life. Dear students, I hope you have a clear idea about communalism, its evolution and spread in India. This brings to an end of module 2. We will meet again to discuss about communalism in modern India. Let us come to the communalism in modern India now. Though India is a secular country, but due to communal feelings, the secularization is getting affected. Secularization is narrowing down the sphere of religion to the private life of the individual. So, communalism is basically becoming a belief system through which a society, economy and polity are reviewed and expanded and around which effort is being made to organize politics. With these unprecedented changes, the best atmosphere of communal harmony should have been created in India, and according to the expectation of Mahatma Gandhi, this country should have become an example in this direction. But this did not happen. Let us see why communalism still persists and increasing in modern India. Since independence, India has been pursuing the ideal of nation building based on secularism. Even after 68 years of independence, India is still burning under the fire of communalism, though there are various reasons responsible for this, but few of them have been discussed here. Understanding the reasons which play a role in continuation of communalism are: first one is religious and the second one is political. The third one is socio-economic and the fourth one is international. In the first, that is religious, its fundamentalism should be considered responsible for communalism. After all, our belief alone is true and rest is untrue or incomplete. We find this kind of mentality of fundamentalists. As per this mentality, when the followers of any religious community, sector or subsector indulge in their activities, they certainly come in conflict with others. Reason is quite evident. They do not have tolerance, which is absolutely necessary for a country like India, a land of different religious communities. They become the cause of confrontation, malice and struggle. Politicians also have played a villainous role in creating serious communal situations in India. There was politics at the root of painful divisions of India in 1947 in the name of a particular religious community. But even after paying a heavy price in the form of partition in many riots provoked thereafter, we can find the involvement directly or indirectly of political parties or their supporters. Along with this, for the sake of vote bank, the policy of appeasement, selection of candidates on the basis of community, sections, subsections and caste, and flaring up religious sentiments at the time of elections led to the rise of communalism. These practices are still continued and the country is bearing heavy loss because of it. We can witness many adverse results of these practices. Socio-economic conditions of India, though after independence, have improved, and even the economic reforms after 1991 has been instrumental in improving such condition, but still there are many challenges in front of Indian society which are now becoming a threat for its diversity. Population, poverty, illiteracy and unemployment create a lot of compulsions, especially before the younger generation. That is why many from younger generation, because of lack of right thinking, remain unemployed and in a state of poverty get involved in the evils like communalism. The efforts being made for uprooting poverty, illiteracy and unemployment are not as fruitful as they should be. The external elements, including non-state actors, also have a role in worsening the problem of communalism and making it serious. We cannot mention the name of any particular country in this regard, but scholars and those who think on this problem from time to time have highlighted this fact. The main reasons for involvement of external elements or their role in riots are as follows: to create an atmosphere of instability so that it becomes socially weak, to hope for gaining sympathy from minorities, to try to weaken the economic structure of a foreign country and with the aim to conceal their own incompetence. Students, I hope now you all have understood why communalism still exists in modern society. I will end the discussion here and we shall meet again to discuss our next module on communal violence incidents in India. Let us come to some infamous communal violence in India. India has a bitter history of communal violence incidents. In this module, we shall focus on some of the major incidents. The first and the most important was partition of India in 1947. After partition, millions of population was forced to move from both sides of the border. Hindus in Pakistan and Muslims in India were killed in masses. Women were raped and many children lost their parents. There was hatred everywhere. Violence didn't see anything except bloodshed. Later, it turned in the problem of refugees and their rehabilitation became one of the biggest challenges for independent India. Then the anti-Sikh riots in 1984. This is one of the bloodshed in India where Sikhs in large number were massacred by anti-Sikh mob. This massacre took place in response to the assassination of Prime Minister Indira Gandhi by his own Sikh bodyguard in response to her actions authorizing the military operation. Ethnic cleansing of Kashmiri Pandits. In 1989, Kashmir is known as the heaven of India and was known for its Kashmiriyat, that is, the reflection of love, peace and harmony through brotherhood and unity of Hindu, Muslims and other communities living together. But the brotherhood saw a serious blow due to extremist Islamic terrorism in the Kashmir Valley, which led to mass killing and large-scale exodus of Kashmiri Pandits from the valley to the various regions and corners of India, giving them the status of refugee in their own country. Since then, the valley is under the grip of communal violence and the ongoing unrest has become a problem for the development of the people. Then was the Babri Masjid demolition in Ayodhya in 1992. According to Hindu mythology, Ayodhya is the birthplace of Lord Rama and therefore it is sacred place for Hindu religion. But in medieval period, Mughal general Mir Baqi built a mosque named after Mughal ruler Babur. There were disputes since then and riots also took place. But in 1990, due to some political mobilization, there was atmosphere of protest by Hindu religious groups and a large-scale car sevak visited Ayodhya from all parts of India in support of demolishing Babri Masjid and building Ram temple there. These movements caused huge amount of bloodshed and since then it is still a disputed matter. After this violence was followed by the Godhra incidents in 2002 when car sevak returning from Ayodhya in a Sabarmati Express were killed by fire in the coaches of train. This act was followed by the extended communal violence in Gujarat. That violence is like black spot in the history of Gujarat and nation too, as people were killed without any mercy. Hindu and Muslim community became antagonists to each other. Till now, people are fighting for justice in Supreme Court with a ray of hope from the Indian judiciary. Then came Assam Communal violence in 2012. Northeastern states are known for its distinguished tribal population and ethnic diversity, and large-scale Bangladeshi immigration has changed the demography of northeastern states, which often becomes a reason for clashes. In 2012, there were ethnic clashes between Bodos, the tribal Christian and Hindu faith, and Muslims. Ethnic tensions between Bodos and Bengali-speaking Muslims escalated into a riot in Kokrajhar in July 2012 when unidentified miscreants killed 4 Bodo youths at Jaipur. Muzaffarnagar violence in 2013. The cause of this ethnic clash between Jat and Muslim communities is very much disputed and has many versions. According to few, it was started after some suspicious post on social media platform, that is a Facebook. According to some, it was escalated after the Eve teasing case in Shamli. Let the reasons be unknown, but what matters is the nature and scale of loss of the country with respect to the human resource and peace. In all these and hundreds of other riots, one thing is common, that huge majority of victims have nothing to do with communal hatred. In short, preparators of violence and victims of violence are different purpose. Similar to above mentioned list, there are many more which has impact on the masses and killed people on large scale. Bombay bomb accident 1993, attack on Akshardham in 2002 by Lashkar-e-Toiba, and Varanasi bomb attack 2006 are a few of them having anti-Hindu outlook. Let us come to the consequences of communalism. The above graph gives us idea about the decadal and regional pattern of riots and people died. Consequences of communalism are well known to all of us. With killings in mass, the real sufferers are the poor. They lose their house, their near and dear ones, their lives, their livelihood, etc. It violates all human rights from all directions. Sometimes children will lose their parents and will become orphan for lifetime, and nobody will be there to look after them. Ghettoization and refugee problem is the other dimension of communalism induced violence, whether it's inter-country or intra-country. A sudden increase in violence against any particular community causes mass exodus and stampede, which in turn kills many number of people. For example, this was seen in the case of Bangalore in 2012 with respect to people from northeastern states, which was stimulated by a rumor. Apart from having effect on the society, it is also a threat to Indian constitutional values, which promotes secularism and religious tolerance. In this case, citizens don't fulfill their fundamental duties towards a nation. It becomes a threat for the unity and integrity of the nation as a whole. It promotes only the feeling of hatred in all directions, dividing the society on communal lines. Other than these, minorities are viewed with suspicion by all, including state authorities like police, paramilitary forces, army, intelligence agencies, etc. There have been many instances when people from such community have been harassed and detained and finally have been released by court orders guilt-free. For this, there is no provision of compensation of such victims about their livelihood, income foregone against social stigmas and emotional trauma of the families. Such things are set back for the society and become barrier for its development. This is also one of the reasons which are keeping India still under the status of developing nation, because such activities occurring frequently do the harm to the human resource and economy of the country. Then again it takes years for the people and the affected regions to come out to the traumas of such violence, having deep impact on minds of those who have faced it. Whole life they feel emotionally broken and insecure. How can we imagine in such conditions for timely harvest of demographic dividend? These were some of the terrible communal incidences India has witnessed since independence. We have seen the consequences of communalism. This is the end of module 4. We will next meet to conclude today's lecture on communalism. Students, it's time now to conclude our lecture. Communal violence is common nowadays throughout the world. They are known by various alternative names, as in China, the communal violence in Xinjiang province is called ethnic violence. Communal violence and riots have also been called non-state conflict, violent civil or minorities unrest, mass racial violence, social or inter-communal violence, and ethno-religious violence. Violence between Buddhist and the Muslim Rohingya inhabit Rakhine state, formerly Arakan province, which stretches along most of the Myanmar's coast up to the Bay of Bengal and borders the Chittagong province of Bangladesh, erupted in 2013. Such violence in neighboring countries like Myanmar, Bangladesh and Pakistan causes violence in retaliation in India also. It also catalyzes the problem of refugees, as in case of Pakistani Hindus, etc. Sri Lanka is also facing international critics and United Nations related to ethnic clashes and action of government against minority Tamilians, which has direct bearing on India and Sri Lanka relations and India's internal security. Increasing diversity due to influx of population from all corners of world in Western countries like USA, UK, Canada, Australia, etc. is posing the challenge of ethnic clashes and violence in their respective societies. Communalism can be combated with the help of globalization as a tool. In the globalized world, all countries are becoming integrated and dependent on each other. Movement of people from one place to other is becoming very easy. In such conditions, to avoid such potential violence, governments are already promoting cultural exchanges through shows, programs, heritage walk, cultural visit by students and parliamentarians. This brings to end of today's chapter on communalism. We have seen how communalism evolved in India and why till date our country is facing threats from communalism. I hope you all have understood the underlying concepts of this chapter. Do keep in mind what we have discussed today. I will be back with one more lecture in this series. If you want to learn more and enhance your knowledge, you may log on to our website www.cec.nic.in for MCQs, quizzes, LORs, etc. Thank you for your time today. I will see you in the next lecture. Keep learning and goodbye.